The sky was still dark when Chidimma opened her eyes. The cold morning breeze seeped through the broken window above her mat, and she wrapped her thin wrapper tighter around her tiny frame. Her bones ached from sleeping on the hard floor, but she knew better than to complain. Madame Caro despised laziness. Before the first cockcrow, Chidimma was already in the kitchen, pounding pepper with a mortar and pestle that towered over her. Her small arms trembled with each strike, but she persisted, knowing that if the pepper wasn't smooth enough, Madame Caro would shout or worse, beat her with the long cane that rested beside the fridge. As she pounded, a single tear rolled down her cheek, not because of the pepper, but because of the dream she'd had. In the dream, she saw her mama calling her from the old mango tree back in the village. "Chidimma, come back home," Mama said with open arms. But Chidimma couldn't move, chains held her legs. As she cried for help, the tree faded away. She sniffed and wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. The sound of footsteps broke her thoughts. It was Madame Caro, holding her phone and wearing her morning robe. "Is the pepper ready?" she asked sharply. "Yes, Ma," Chidimma replied, stepping aside. Madame Caro dipped her finger into the pepper and licked it. Not bad. Go and clean the toilet. It stinks," she ordered. Chidimma nodded and dropped the pestle, hurrying off. As she reached the corridor, she passed Queen's room. The door was open, and Queen stood in front of her mirror, brushing her teeth. "You again," she muttered when she saw Chidimma. Chidimma didn't respond, she just walked faster. "Don't forget what you did yesterday," Queen called out. "Next time, you won't escape so easily." Chidimma paused but didn't turn. She continued walking, her heart pounding. In the toilet, she scrubbed harder than usual, not wanting any trouble today. After cleaning, she went back to the kitchen to help Auntie Igioma prepare breakfast, yam and fried eggs. The aroma filled the house, and her stomach growled, but she wasn't allowed to taste anything. By 8 a.m., the family sat at the table to eat. Chidimma stood by the wall, watching them laugh and chew loudly. Her eyes were fixed on the steaming plate of food, but she dared not say a word. "Chidimma," Madame Stella said suddenly. "Yes, Ma," Chidimma replied quickly. "Come here," Madame Stella said. Chidimma walked over, her bare feet tapping the tiled floor. "Take this plate to the dog," she said, handing Chidimma a broken plate with bones and little leftovers. Chidimma nodded and walked outside. The dog barked happily when he saw her. She dropped the plate and sat on the step, watching him eat. A part of her felt jealous. At least the dog was fed properly. "Why am I even here?" she whispered. "Why did Mama let me go?" The question sat heavy in her heart. That afternoon, while the family rested in their rooms with the air conditioner blowing, Chidimma was washing a heap of clothes at the backyard tap. The sun was hot, and her back burned. She twisted and scrubbed until her fingers were sore and wrinkled. Then, Madame Caro's friend, Auntie Francisca, came to visit. She smiled when she saw Chidimma working. "Is this the maid?" she asked Madame Caro. "Yes," Madame Stella replied. "She's still learning. Lazy and stubborn, but she'll get used to the system." Auntie Francisca walked up to Chidimma and bent slightly. "What's your name?" "Chidimma," she replied shyly. "You look tired, my dear. Are they treating you well here?" Madame Caro's eyes flashed. "She's just shy," she said quickly. "She eats 3 times a day. We even bought her new clothes." Chidimma looked down at her torn wrapper. Auntie Francisca nodded slowly. But later that evening, Auntie Francisca saw something that changed everything. As Chidimma bent to fetch water, her back was exposed slightly. A fresh scar ran across her shoulder blade, long and red. "What happened to your back?" Auntie Francisca asked softly. Chidimma froze, unsure of what to say. Madame Caro appeared quickly and laughed, nervously. "Oh, that. She fell while playing. Children, you know." But Auntie Francisca wasn't convinced. She saw the fear in Chidimma's eyes, and her expression softened. That night, Chidimma sat alone in her corner, tracing the scar with her finger. It was still sore, a reminder of the last beating when she accidentally broke a glass cup. She brought out Mama's letter again and whispered, "Mama, you said to be strong. But it's hard. Very hard." Tears ran down her cheeks. Somewhere in the dark, the gardener watched her from the veranda. He clenched his fists, his face tight with anger. Tomorrow, he promised himself, he would do something. He didn't know what yet, but he couldn't keep watching. Not anymore. The next day, Auntie Francisca returned, this time with a purpose. She spoke to Madame Caro in hushed tones, her words firm but controlled. Madame Caro's expression changed from calm to defensive, but Auntie Francisca stood her ground. Meanwhile, Chidimma went about her chores, unaware of the conversation unfolding in the living room. But as the day went on, she noticed a subtle change in the atmosphere. Madame Caro's tone was slightly softer, and Queen's taunts were fewer. As the sun began to set, Auntie Francisca called Chidimma to sit with her on the veranda. "Chidimma, I want to ask you something," she said gently. "Do you want to go back to your mama?" Chidimma's eyes widened, and a spark of hope ignited within her. She nodded slowly, unsure if it was possible. Auntie Francisca smiled and took Chidimma's hand. "We'll see what we can do, okay?" Chidimma nodded again, feeling a sense of hope she hadn't felt in a long time. Maybe, just maybe, things would change for the better. The gardener, watching from a distance, felt a sense of relief wash over him. Perhaps, with Auntie Francisca's help, Chidimma would find her way back home. He nodded to himself, knowing that he had played a small part in bringing attention to Chidimma's plight. As the night fell, Chidimma lay on her mat, her heart filled with a sense of hope and possibility. She drifted off to sleep, a small smile on her face, wondering what the future held. As the days went by, Auntie Francisca became a regular visitor to the household. She would deliberately come and sit with Chidimma, talk to her, and listen to her stories. Madame Caro seemed to be on her best behavior when Auntie Francisca was around, but Chidimma knew it was all an act. One day, Auntie Francisca took Chidimma to her own home in disguise to give her little gift for the friend's daughter Queen. Chidimma was amazed by the warmth and love that filled the house. Auntie Francisca's children were grown and gone, but the house still felt like a home. Auntie Francisca sat Chidimma down and made her a plate of food. "Eat, child," she said. "You look like you could use a good meal." Chidimma devoured the food, savoring every bite. It was the first time in a long time she had eaten a meal that wasn't scraps or leftovers. As they ate, Auntie Francisca told Chidimma about her plan. "I've been talking to some people, and we're going to try to find a way to get you back to your mama," she said. Chidimma's eyes lit up with hope. "Really?" she asked, her voice trembling. Auntie Francisca nodded. "Yes, really. We'll do everything we can to make sure you're safe and happy." Chidimma felt a lump form in her throat as she thought about seeing her mama again. Over the next few weeks, Auntie Francisca worked tirelessly to make sure Chidimma was reunited with her family. She met with social workers, talked to Madame Caro, and even went to the village to meet with Chidimma's mama. Finally, the day arrived when Chidimma would leave the household and start her journey back home. Auntie Francisca came to the house, her face beaming with joy. "It's time, Chidimma," she said. "You're going home." Madame Caro came out from her bedroom, well dressed. She slumped on the floor. She was hurriedly carried to the hospital. That singular act disrupted the plans of Auntie Francisca in taking Chidimma back home. Chidimma cried her eyes off because her hope was shattered.